Hi there. Today I'm going to show you how to write a MicroK8s add-on. MicroK8s is a Kubernetes distribution that has been developed by Canonical, and one of the coolest things about it is that you can extend it with your own functionality through the Addon ecosystem. The Addon ecosystem is pretty new, and I'm excited to be able to give a preview of how it works in this video. But before we get to that, let's just take a quick look at how MicroK8s is actually structured. So first and foremost, MicroK8s works as a snap inside of Ubuntu. MicroK8s benefits from being sandboxed inside of this snap, and it's constituted of about 3 or 4 primary components. We have kubelite, which is combining the primary runtime. We also have containerd, and we also then have a few other things such as cluster agent that enable us to effectively make an HA control plane and add in worker nodes. So that's how Kubernetes actually runs within MicroK8s, and what that would give you is a Kubernetes cluster when you start to thread these things together. But what about day 2 stuff? What about if you're just learning, and what about all the other things that you need to put on top of that to make it useful? Well, a few of you might know that when you use MicroK8s, you have this thing called Addons. So you can go MicroK8s enable Nginx, for example. MicroK8s enables storage. What that does is that it effectively pulls in not just YAML, but it runs commands to set up and orchestrate things within your cluster. So as an example, when you're setting up storage, you might want to set up something like local path. It will go away and install the storage classes. It will make sure that you've then got the local path provisioner set up as well, and that the labeling is also done correctly on the nodes. So today I'm going to take you through how you add your own add-on, because one of the new things that's happened is that MicroK8s has now separated out its add-on repository from being built in to being something external that you can pull in. So when we run MicroK8s, you have the default set of add-ons that come with it as ever, and then you'll also have this opportunity to add your own repos. So you can do something along the lines of MicroK8s add-ons repo add Alex, and I can give it my GitHub address, and I can add my own repo in like that. And what's really cool about this is then I can just say, okay, well, MicroK8s enable Alex Nginx. So I could have my own version that's tailored to my needs for Nginx. And this is super powerful when we think about organizations who want to be able to leverage a set of add-ons that might be in a private repository that they don't want to share with the world, but they want to get their engineers up and running. And so I'm going to take you through the process of how do you write your add-on, how do you then contribute that back if you want to, or how do you host it in your own repository. So let's open up my terminal here. Now, I mentioned that the add-on repository is broken out, so we can go to GitHub. Let's find MicroK8s add-ons. And what you can see here is a repository that gives you some explanation of the add-ons YAML format, the structure of the repository, and the hacking.md for how to actually develop an add-on. I'll let you go through this in your own time, but for the sake of this demo, I'm going to compress some of the information here so that we can walk through it pretty quickly. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fork this repository. So I'm going to click on fork here, put it into my own repository here. In the meantime, I have MicroK8s set up. Now for this video, because we're using some advanced features, we're going to go snap install MicroK8s classic channel equals latest edge. If you've already got MicroK8s installed and you want to switch to that channel, you just type snap refresh MicroK8s channel equals latest edge. And this will switch you over from stable, which is our, think of it like our main line, onto our edge branch. And this is cool because you get that edge distribution channel with all the latest features. And so if I go MicroK8s status, you can see it's still running. And we can also see that I have the add-ons built in that I mentioned a moment ago, but these are called core add-ons. So the core add-ons are the ones that we officially support at Canonical. That could be ingress, that could be storage, and then we have an opportunity to add our own add-on repos in as well. So I've now got my add-on repository. I'm going to go ahead and grab this. So I'm going to go into my home folder. And I will make a new directory just to keep this clean. Let's clone this repository. That's because I'm using SSH. Let's switch to HTTPS. Here we go. So I have the add-ons checked out from the remote. Probably what's worth doing as well is for me to actually add my SSH key so I can push back up. But that doesn't stop you working with it. What you can actually do is you can pull the add-ons folder down into your local MicroK8s copy. And I'll show you how to do that as well. But let's get started from here. So let's say that I want to write an add-on. Where do I even get started? Well, I have the addons.yaml. So I'm just going to grab Vim. And in that addons.yaml are the architecture types and the names of the different add-ons. So I'm going to make something really simple, and I'm going to call it foo. So what we do is we would take name, foo, a simple example of an add-on, version. Now this version gets plumbed through to your enable disable scripts if you so want it to, and the check status will be used to determine whether it's running correctly within a cluster. So in this example I'm going to say check status, and this will be a pod, so we'll call it something along the lines of, in fact we'll call it deployment.apps. In fact, let's find some examples here. So you've got deployment.apps, Argo, pod gateway. Yeah, so I'll just give it pod name. So I'm going to call it pod/foo. And so any derivative of the name foo, it will check for. What else do we need? Supported architectures. Well, I'm running currently on ARM64, so I want it to run on ARM64, and I also want it to run on AMD 64 as well. So there we go. That's my add-on defined. Now what I need to do is, if we just grab the tree functionality, which is a useful program, we can look at our add-ons folder, and you can see every add-on has an enable and a disable script. These can be written in Python, in Golang, but mostly you'll find them in shell because it's ubiquitous across architectures, whereas some of these compiled languages you might have to compile multi-arch. So I'm going to go into that add-ons folder. Now the trick here is you keep it the same name, make directory foo. I'm going to go into foo, and I'm going to write an enable and a disable script. So touch, enable, touch, disable. And then you can see I've made those executable as well. So here we have enable disable for the add-on of foo. And if I run that, of course, it does nothing. This is where it's useful to actually look at how some of the other add-ons are written. So one of the add-ons that comes to mind for me is metric server. It's about as simple as you can get. It's not a community add-on, it's a core add-on. So we can find that if we go to Canonical, MicroK8s, core add-ons. Let's look inside of there, and we can find that down here in metric server. Enable, disable. If we look at enable, you can see there's this language and these replacements that might be unfamiliar, but actually these are interpolated values that are super useful because they give you context as to where the snap is running. So you can see the first thing that it's doing is sourcing the utils shell script. It's then grabbing the current directory name. It's then also doing another source. So it's using actions utils and then also the common utils. And then it's enabling. So we don't need the first bit really, but this next part is relevant to us. So you can see that it is grabbing the kube control parameters, but with the client config. So what it's doing is it's grabbing the MicroK8s kubeconfig, and then you can use kubecontrol as you like to do an apply from there. So here you've got use Addon manifest, and then at that point you've got the apply command, and this Addon manifest comes from the utils.shell. There are a few different ways that these things have been written, and I would invite you to look at some of the add-ons. Some of them actually are Pythonic, as I mentioned before, which are much easier to read, and they're testable. But for the sake of this example, we're just going to use our simple shell script. And again, when you start getting more advanced and you have these Python-based add-ons, you can actually do a lot more in terms of setting up directories, checking the cluster status, and so on when you need to do those more advanced operations. So let's go into here. Now you can see they've got a metrics server.yaml. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a pod.yaml. Now I'm going to go off to Google. I'm going to grab the Nginx pod, which is on the Kubernetes IO docs. And I think if I do a little search here, I should be able to find it. All right. There's a deployment. We could make it a deployment, that's fine. But just remember, in our definition of this, we also said that we would be checking for a pod. So let me just go up and update that. So there's our basic deployment. I'm just going to go up a few directories and change the YAML file to look for deployment of /foo. Okay. Okay, now back into our enable script. And what do we need to do? Well, let's have a look at what's in the metrics server core add-ons. I'm going to grab this. And it's important as well to set bash as the environmental variable in the shebang here. It's a fairly basic Vim setup, but I'll put some lines in. So you can see that we've got common utils gets pulled in. We also get the current directories utils. Now let's call this enabling foo. And you can see this is how you grab kubecontrol. Now apply manifests. This is where it's interesting because this is using the folder derivative. So metrics server is the folder name, and then metrics server is the YAML file name. So we're going to go foo /foo because the file is called foo and the folder is called foo. Then you can see it's got this refresh opt-in kubelet authentication webhook. We don't need to do that. We also don't need to restart the kubelet because we are just doing a very simple deployment. Okay. Now you'll see that we also have to do something with the disable script. So what we could do is the inverse. So let's actually, in fact, copy enable to disable. Except for on here, I want to know how to disable it. So you can see we have the apply command on use addon manifest. For this one here, in the metrics server, you'll see that they're also doing a similar thing where they're doing an addon manifest delete. So I think I'm okay to just go into here and run a delete. And we can say this is disabling. Foo is disabled. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do very quickly, just for this demo, is I will generate an SSH key. Oops, try that again. Now this will just be one that I use for this demo, and I'm going to grab the public part of that key. I'm going to pop that into GitHub, so that I can then push this remotely, and then we can see the next part of the demo. So SSH keys, demo. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go up to the top directory. One other thing I'll need to do is, because I pulled it through HTTPS, I need to re-add the origin. Okay. Let's just double check that I'm on the right branch. So that's canonical main. Let's go back to my main. Okay. It always helps with Git when you actually add things correctly. And I'll just set up my config quickly. And my email address. Okay, let's push that. So now we've pushed this to our main repository, which is our Addon repository. Now, this is where the fun stuff starts. So with MicroK8s now, what I can do in my local copy is I can add that repository in as an upstream, and I can even pull when there are changes. So let's go ahead and do that. MicroK8s, Addons, and you'll see that you have a bunch of stuff you can do here. So the command of repo, add, alex, hps, github.com, MicroK8s addons. There we go. So now we go MicroK8s status. We now see that I have add-ons that have been added. Now, what's interesting is it's complementary here, so it's adding the add-ons that weren't in core. I can see that I have now foo. And of course, I want to try and see if that works. MicroK8s enable foo. So we've got a bug. Now, rather than having to go through the process of actually debugging it remotely, pushing it back up, I can jump into what is called var snap MicroK8s common. This directory is where your add-ons live. So we look here, we have core, which are the ones that ship with MicroK8s, the ones that I showed you just here. And then we've got my add-ons, which have been pulled in from my remote repository. So what I can do is I can jump into that, go into my add-ons, go into foo, which is effectively, it's a shallow copy of a Git repository. And I can see my pod YAML, my enable, my disable. Any changes I make here can instantly be tested. So let's go ahead and have a look. So var snap MicroK8s add-ons, add-ons common, up directory, which looks wrong, right? foo.yaml. So let's have a look at why that's occurring. And also foo.yaml, I called it pod.yaml. So let's try changing that firstly from pod.yaml to foo.yaml, because firstly it's not a pod, right? It's a deployment. So now again I can run MicroK8s enable foo, and we can see that my deployment has been created. If we go kubectl get deployments, MicroK8s kubectl, you can see that my deployment has just been created. It's really nice that MicroK8s ships with kubectl. It's one less thing you got to install in your system. So that's been installed. Now, if I actually wanted to make those changes, take them back again, I would go home, back into MicroK8s add-ons, and you got a choice here, but probably what the easiest thing to do would be to copy rf the entire component. So var snap MicroK8s common add-ons alex add-ons foo. foo, there we go. And then inside of my directory here, addons foo, I'm just going to copy it over. Now we go add. And you can see that we have a change here. Now I just want to check something. So let's just have a look and make sure I've not copied the wrong thing in here. So we go to foo, disable, enable. That looks correct. However, I have made a mistake. I copied foo into the foo directory. So what I'm going to do is delete. And I'm just going to move everything from that directory to here. There we go. Just a little error on my side when I was copying over. So now I can go back here. There we go. Those have been deleted, but there's been a rename, which is good. So now I have an add-on that I want to contribute back to the ecosystem. MicroK8s add-ons is about to be renamed to MicroK8s community add-ons to make this a lot clearer of what these do. But at the moment, what I can now do is, now that I see that I've got foo here, it's a valuable community add-on, is I can simply go to Canonical MicroK8s add-ons, and I can open a PR, and I can say, accept my really awesome add-on because it adds a lot of value, and I think that the community would want to see this. So the head repository would be my repository, and when I create that pull request, you'll see that we'll be adding foo into this. I hope that you found that useful, because I think that the add-ons repository system is extremely exciting. It's going to enable developers to create their own suites of add-ons, as well as fairly easily modify existing add-ons in the ecosystem. One of the things that we're really pushing for and excited to do is to reward people for bringing add-ons of a high quality into the core add-ons repositories. Whether that's a service mesh, a storage driver, you can effectively take a product that you work with or you might have built and to bring it into MicroK8s in a really easy way. So I'm excited to see what innovation comes in the next few weeks and months. Thank you again for watching this video. It's been a real pleasure to make it. And if you have any questions, please do reach out in the comments. You can reach out on Slack on Kubernetes for MicroK8s channel. And please do like and subscribe to see more. Thank you.